The cliff edge crumbled under his weight. Moses stood at the precipice, his knuckles white as he tightened his grip on the wooden staff. Below, the Red Sea was a chaotic, churning mass of dark waves, roaring with a hunger that drowned out the wind. He did not hesitate. He thrust the staff toward the horizon, driving it into the empty air. The reaction was instantaneous. The water shrieked, a sound like grinding stone as the surface tore open. A violent tremor shook the cliff, vibrating through the soles of his feet. The sea did not merely part, it recoiled. Two colossal, trembling walls of water rose toward the clouds, towering hundreds of feet high. The pressure was immense, a deep, rhythmic thrumming that rattled the very air. Between these liquid pillars, a path of wet, glistening sand emerged, stretching into the dark abyss. The sea churned against itself, trapped in a vertical prison of its own making. Moses held his position, the staff still extended, his arm locked in place. The path was open. He looked down at the seabed, waiting for the first step. Behind Moses, the crowd remained frozen, chest heaving in the thin air. He gestured forward with his staff, a sharp, singular command. The first family stepped off the mud and onto the seabed. Their feet sank into the wet, glistening silt, leaving deep, dark impressions. They moved with caution, eyes darting toward the towering walls of water that vibrated with the immense pressure of the deep. The path was a graveyard of the ocean floor. They stepped over exposed, jagged coral reefs and past trapped fish, flopping helplessly. The sound of the water walls was a constant, low-frequency hum that rattled their teeth. Fear kept them huddled at first, but the paralysis broke. They began to walk, then quicken their pace, their movements becoming a desperate, rhythmic march. They were small, insignificant figures moving through a corridor of liquid glass. The walls reached hundreds of feet into the air. On the far shore, the horizon darkened. A line of iron and bronze emerged from the gloom, a creeping, metallic tide that moved with terrifying precision. Chariot wheels clattered against the rocks, a sharp, repetitive sound that cut through the low hum of the sea. The rhythmic beat of drums began to echo across the water, growing louder with every pulse. Above, the sky shifted into a bruised, sickly, purple. Lightning flickered deep within the clouds, illuminating the massive, shifting curtains of water that stood between the two worlds. The flashes revealed the scale of the approaching force, a relentless, dark mass that showed no sign of slowing. The wind howled, whipping across the seabed. A single beam of golden light pierced the gloom, striking the path where the people walked, but it did not reach the shore behind them. The army continued its advance, a wall of iron closing the distance. Every drumbeat vibrated through the ground, a countdown that signaled the end. The pursuers were no longer a distant threat. They were a physical presence, a grinding machine of war that had arrived at the very threshold of the sea. The Egyptian vanguard surged forward, their horses skidding onto the wet silt. The animals reared, eyes rolling in terror at the towering, translucent walls that hummed with lethal pressure. They did not stop. The chariots clattered, wheels biting into the soft floor as the soldiers pushed deeper into the corridor. Moses stood firm, his arm trembling under the weight of the command. He raised his staff one final time. The sky ignited. A blinding, absolute beam of golden light struck the path, searing the air and silencing the drums. The vibration intensified until the very ground seemed to liquefy. High above, the massive curtains of water leaned inward. They did not fall. They collapsed with the force of a mountain. The sound was not a crash, but a deafening, grinding roar of stone against stone. The vanguard broke. Horses screamed, chariots splintered, and the soldiers turned to flee, but the path was already gone. The sea reclaimed its space, swallowing the iron and bronze in a single, suffocating surge. Chaos erupted as the water surged forward. The last of the people clawed their way up the muddy bank, lungs burning, bodies collapsing onto the solid earth. Behind them, the world vanished. The roar of the returning tide rose to a crescendo, a thunderous, grinding wall of water that swallowed the screams. Then, as quickly as the violence had begun, the sound shifted. The churning waves settled into a rhythmic, heavy pulse against the shore. Moses turned his back on the sea. He did not look for survivors. He stood at the edge of the new land, his grip loosening on the staff. The horizon stretched out, vast and empty. He breathed in the cool air, his face set, eyes fixed on the dark expanse ahead.